Rebecca. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. So, what can you tell me? Well, let me ask you this. How your day been today?
It's been good. Mondays are a little slower, so that's typically whenever I catch up on social media and getting back to people's emails and that kind of thing. So now Tuesdays and Thursdays get a little crazy because that's when we have day club. And our day club program is for people living with dementia, and so you can see this room off of my office. They'll be in there and they're doing crafts and playing games, and there's an hour of singing and dancing, so it's always fun on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
That's very exciting. So how did you get into the social media aspect of it?
Well, my background is in journalism, so I'll just tell you my whole little story and you'll figure out how it all fits together. So I started here in Tyler in 2010. I started working for the Tyler paper, and then was lured away by one of the nonprofits that I was covering, which I knew I would be because I'm a big old bleeding heart and a matter of time. But the first nonprofit I went to work for was Next Step Community Solutions, and they focus on substance abuse prevention. So I did that for several years. And then saw this opening here. I've been here, it was a year in March. And I knew that they needed to beef up their social media presence and their TV and radio presence and podcast presence. Mm-hmm. And that's why I'm here, is I wanted to tell the story of the Alzheimer's Alliance, because I think it's a great organization, and I have a personal background. My grandfather had Alzheimer's, so I know how difficult it can be for families, and I'm just so glad that this organization is here.
So what exactly are the early signs of it, but what is something that you noticed that was difficult when dealing with having someone that has?
So it starts small with Alzheimer's. Little things like forgetting important dates that wouldn't be normal to forget, losing track of what season it is, that kind of thing. One moment that stands out in my mind, and this was well after we knew what was going on, but when I think of my grandfather, I always think of, and this was my dad's dad. I was sitting across from him and my dad at Thanksgiving, and he looked at my dad and said, "Where's your dad?" Well, he was his dad, but his brain had been so damaged by that point. He was just forgetting everybody. Yeah, it's horrible. It's one of the cruelest diseases, I think. So that's why we're here, is we offer emotional support to people living with dementia as well as their caregivers, because it doesn't just affect that person, it affects the whole family.
What's the difference between dementia and Alzheimer's?
So dementia is an umbrella term, and Alzheimer's is one kind of dementia. So Alzheimer's is the most common by far. It's, I think, estimated to be 60 to 80% of cases of any kind of dementia. And then you have vascular, which is what can happen after a series of strokes. Lewy body dementia is one of the less common ones, but there's lots and lots of different kinds of dementias. But it's just an umbrella term for memory loss, lack of judgment, unable to control emotions, those different kinds of things that are all controlled by your brain. And all of those dementias have different ways that they progress. So like Alzheimer's is a slow and steady decline, whereas Lewy body, you might have a really good day and the next day you are unresponsive. So that's another thing I really encourage people, is because we don't just cover Alzheimer's disease, we cover all kinds of dementias. So I really encourage people to come here and talk to the staff here about what their kind of dementia is, and the resources we can provide for that.
Dementia and stuff like that. Is it something that just magically happens, or is it just something what do you call it? We call it when it passed down. Is it going to be passed
genetic
down? Yes.
Or hereditary? Yeah. So scientists are still figuring out all the different ways it can work. So there is a genetic component. it used to be thought that it was, if you have the gene, you're going to get it. It's, more doom and gloom than it is now. It's actually pretty preventable. They estimate now that only about 3% of people who have the gene are for sure going to get it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the things that prevent almost every other kind of terminal illness. So like exercising regularly, eating healthy. The Mediterranean diet is really good for preventing dementia. Having social stimulation, getting enough sleep is a really good way to help prevent it. And then there's a spiritual aspect as well. Not necessarily going to church, but doing something that reminds you of how we are all connected and how you connect to whatever higher power you believe in. It actually really shows some promising research for preventing dementia.
As you've been here for a while, you've been here for a year.
Yeah, it was a year at the end of March. Mm-hmm.
Well, congratulations on you guys.
Thank you.
Family members who have family that have dementia, and then I'm pretty sure it gets agitating after a while. It's like, how do you not know who I am? I'm like, how do they mentally prepare for it?
Well, it's really important that caregivers take care of themselves, because one of the things we talk about is sometimes caregivers can get so stressed out that they actually will pass away before their loved one with dementia. It's such a burden, not only mentally but physically, because people with Alzheimer's and dementia oftentimes need 24/7 care. Like it gets to a certain point where it's like having a child. You can't leave them alone. So part of what we offer is respite. We offer 40 hours of respite for free. So we contract with healthcare providers that go into the home, and if the family caregiver needs a break, they can use that service. And then if they have an appointments or vacation or whatever, they can leave and know that their loved one is going to be taken care of. We also have a counselor here who helps them work through that emotional journey of having a loved one with dementia. Mm. And she also meets with people with early dementia, because as you can imagine, getting that diagnosis yourself would be so scary and hard to deal with, and there's a lot of grief that needs to be worked through. And we have support groups as well for caregivers, just lots of different ways that we help support caregivers emotionally.
What does it take to become a caregiver? Do you have to be somebody that's willing to be like a spouse, or does it have to be somebody that's trained?
Yeah, so I mean, we see a lot of spouses. We see a lot of children caring for their parents who are aging, who can't care for themselves anymore. Mm. A lot of times it's family. Of course, there's always those rare cases where you have a friend who is a caregiver. But caregiver just means someone who is there to take care of you and make sure that you are getting your basic needs met and that kind of thing.
Well, I mean, it's hard to say the mind of one, but when you have dementia, you just lose track of what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's kind of hard to explain to someone who has a typical brain, right? But an example I like to give is there's a woman who speaks for us. She's a hospice doctor, and the example she gives of her grandmother, one of the things she noticed was they had like 20 people at their house for Thanksgiving, and her grandmother made one can of green beans for that many people, because your brain just cannot do that kind of logical thinking anymore. As well as the memory loss and the emotional regulation is really difficult for people with dementia too. And if you go to the Alzheimer's Association, they have the 10 warning signs that people can look out for and talk to their doctor about.
Okay. Whenever you have the early signs of it, when you get diagnosed, what can you really... let's say you live by yourself and you get dementia. Well, not dementia, like I ain't gonna say it. So you get Alzheimer's. Let's say you live by yourself, you have no family. What can they really do? Like, do they just have to have somebody come by every day and stay with them? Or they go somewhere to...
there are companies that you can hire that are professional caregivers, that can come and live with someone. It's pretty pricey. So that is something that we encourage people to look into, is how, if you're older and you don't have family to take care of you, how, if something happens, how would you be able to take care of yourself?
Right. with the facility you have here, is it expensive to come here for treatment?
No. Well, we don't do like medical treatment per se. All the stuff we offer are social services. So things like case management, which is talking to people about where they are in their journey with dementia, some resources for recommendation that we have. We do offer free memory screenings on Fridays with our licensed psychological associate. Her name is Will Maurice. And but those are just very like brief 10-minute quizzes. Like you can take a version online if you're curious about how you would score. And if if you don't do well on those, then we recommend you going to see a neurologist or a neuropsychologist and getting a more thorough evaluation. And those thorough evaluations would take all day. They ask all sorts of different questions to help figure out what kind of dementia you have. But the resources here are not expensive at all. Most are free. The support groups are free. The caregiver workshops are free. Meeting with our case manager is free. The counseling and day club are suggested $40, but we always have scholarships for people because we're a nonprofit and we want to make sure this is something that's always available to the community.
How do you, so if it's a nonprofit, do you guys take donations?
Oh, yes. Yes. And that's another thing we're really trying to stress to people is we have grown so much in the last few years. We came into this new building in May of 2022. And I was looking at the numbers, and if you compare this first quarter of 2023 to the first quarter of 2022, we've seen more people this quarter than we did the whole half of 2022. So we know the need is growing, and that's going to be the trend across the nation is they say that it's growing because the biggest generation is aging, the
right.
Baby boomers. And age is the biggest risk factor for Alzheimer's disease and for any of those other dementias. So as more and more people age, we're going to see more cases of Alzheimer's and dementia, and we're going to be growing more. So we always welcome people's donations.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. If someone wants to make a donation, they have to go to the website. Can they come up here or? However
they want to do it. We have people who do it all different ways. They can walk into our office. They can call our office, 903-509-8323, or they can go to our website, alzalliance.org. Yeah. So one thing I also wanted to talk about was our Dementia Friendly initiative.
Okay.
So in 2019, we worked with the city of Tyler to get Tyler recognized as a dementia-friendly community. Mm. So what that means is that we have partnerships with Christus Hospital System and with the Hospice Cities, Texas. And we're looking for even more organizations to come on board with us. What that means is lots of different sectors of the community know what dementia is, and they know how to approach someone who has dementia. So for example, we're doing a training in a couple months for banks, because if you think about it, if you're a bank teller and someone comes to you as a client and they have symptoms of dementia, you might not know how to handle that.
Sure.
So what we're trying to do is make it so every different sector of the population, banks, churches, grocery stores, know how to recognize someone with dementia and how to help them if they are lost or confused. So I'm really excited about that because most of the people who are living with Alzheimer's and dementia are not living in nursing homes. They're in their homes, and so they're still part of the community. So how can we take care of them as a community?
With the rising of dementia, of course, you said with the baby boomers kind of coming up and they're of course, it's the baby boomers. My question is, I'm trying to think, like, I understand that it's hard to have someone I'm trying to figure out how to say it. When people have these diseases, I think because I can't comprehend how a person with that kind of mind works. So it's kind of hard for me to ask a question about it if I don't know how it works.
Another analogy I've heard that I found was really helpful is imagine that you are in a foreign country. Mm-hmm. You don't speak the language. you've lost your phone and you've lost your passport.
Okay.
How would you feel?
Confused,
scared.
Mm-hmm.
That's how people with dementia feel, because so much of the world, because of the way the disease is progressing in their brain, is confusing to them now. So, and that's why I'm so excited about Dementia Friendly, because we have another program here called the Virtual Dementia Tour, where, without giving too much away, because if anyone who's listening ever wants to come do it, I wouldn't want to give too much away,
right.
But we garb them up with kind of sensory inhibiting gear, and give them a list of tasks to do in the experience room that we have set up. And I went through it as part of the onboarding for this role, and I was shocked how difficult the tasks were, even though they were everyday tasks, and how confused and frustrated and anxious I felt. And I just, when I had all that stuff on and was trying to figure out what to do, I just wanted someone to tell me it was okay.
Right.
And that's what we want with the Dementia Friendly initiative, is people to feel safe in their community, and have people in the community who can come up to them and say, you look like you're struggling a little bit. It's okay. I'm going to help you figure it out.
I didn't come with saying this. I've been saying a lot, saying it's okay to not be okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's something I'm trying to push, because a lot of people don't. Because I think a lot of people in their mind, like, they want to be perfect. They want to have this, everything's in order. But then I feel like when they get stripped, I think that's just the part of being a human, the part of being a person, that everyone goes through trials and problems. I feel like it depends on how you process it. But if you have dementia or something, it's kind of, you can't process it like that. You have to.
And of course, there's a feeling of embarrassment when you have dementia, because something's not right. You know that your brain isn't working the way that it used to be. So a lot of times they will self-isolate because they're embarrassed, or they're ashamed, or they're afraid, and they don't know what's going on with them, and they they might wonder what people would think about that.
I think they're going to be okay.
Yeah, they're going to be okay. So this is our day club room. This is where the fun happens. So you might see the basket of noodles over there. They will play noodle ball with that beach ball, or they might play fly swatter volleyball with balloons. And then at the tables, they will do crafts and play games and have lunch. And then in this space over here, there will be an hour of singing and dancing, which is everybody's favorite. If you look on the shelves over there, you can see we have robotic dogs and cats, which a lot of times help stimulate and engage the people living with dementia, especially if they were big pet lovers. And lots of different games and activities for them, because that's really the point of our day club program, is to make sure that they are engaged and socialized and stimulated, because it really helps not only make sure they have a good time, but make sure that stimulation helps slow the progression of their dementia, and that they can have a better quality of life for longer. And whenever they're here, their caregiver can get a break. So it's a twofold program, and it's probably one of our most popular. There is a waiting list, so we are working right now on getting that waiting list reduced, and hopefully maybe you can even add a day in the near future. This is our counseling room. We have people who come in here who are caregivers and people living with early dementia, and work out their emotions and process the grief that can come along with this journey with our LPC, Kathy McCabe. So we have people who can come and get that support whenever they need to. This is our library, where we have lots of different kinds of resources for all different kinds of dementia, as well as common issues that can come up. We have resources on how to have that conversation about giving up driving, understanding the disease process. We have lots of resources in Spanish as well. So anybody is always welcome to come here and check out these resources we have.
What do you hope to see this company be in the next 5 years? Like the organization as a whole.
I mean, if we're just dreaming big here, I would love to see another day of our day club program. We do Tuesdays and Thursdays right now, but there's a waiting list for that because the need is just so great. I would love to be able to see us offer even more respite. We have another program called Project Lifesaver, where we provide a tracking bracelet to families for people with dementia who wander, because that can be life-threatening when someone with dementia wanders off from home, because they might be out in the elements, if it's, like it's getting really hot out right now, or in the winter, and when they get lost and confused, the stat is nationally, if they're lost for more than 24 hours, they have about a 30% chance of survival. So it's really important, and I that program's really underutilized, because most people with dementia will wander at some point. So we really want to see more people on that program. I would love to see more funding, of course, which is what's going to help provide these programs for even more and more people. So yeah, I just hope that we can continue to grow and meet the need as the need continues to grow.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you.